Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I've got the tank review for the brand new Soviet Tier 8 Premium Medium tank, the Grimroot, which is one of the brand new Halloween tanks for 2025. So if you do like the video as always, don't forget to like and subscribe down below as it really does help out the channel. And yes, the Grimroot is quite funky that it's a Soviet tank because it's more suited to being a mercenary, because it's an LTG hull with a K91 version 2 turret and the gun of a Sturmpanzer, but statistically up-tiered to be at Tier 8 as opposed to the Tier 7 version of the Sturmpanzer gun. Or Sturmpanzer 5, the creature. You know, that gun anyway. So it's a 15cm gun. So yeah, the Grimroot is that LTG hull. So it's the hull of a light tank, the turret of a medium tank, and the gun of a derpy tank. I'm not even going to say tank destroyer, just a derpy tank. And what's it like as a tank? Well, it's pretty solid. It's one of those vehicles that will be very hit and miss, and I can tell you now, this tank will probably be Marmite. There'll be some people who absolutely hate it because it's slow and sluggish. The gun is pretty damn derpy because it's a derp gun. And they will struggle with that, so they will not like this vehicle. There'll be people that love it, and I'm probably in that camp, to be honest, because the camo is amazing. The camo is absolutely filthy on this vehicle. It's quite difficult to spot, which makes you get into some sneaky positions to then go dirt people with. If you can make the most of the gun, and you can get used to the unwieldiness of the gun, you can have some fantastic times with this vehicle. You can have some absolute memes, and it's a royal laugh. It's one of those tanks that I feel like there'll be a lot of people that will struggle with it, and there'll be a lot of people that get it, know how to use it, and get the most out of this vehicle. Obviously, if it was a bit faster, I think it'd be a bit filthy, to be honest, but it's pretty slow and sluggish. The gun is very derpy, but the camo's great, the alpha's lovely, and depending on using the ammo swapper, you can use the HE to be filthy, or the AP, which hits like a truck. It's lovely for that. So yeah, that's the Grimroot. Let's get into the statistics of the vehicle. Well, actually, first, let's have a quick look at the price of it. So if you go to Halloween, you go to the Spellbound, as it's there, you've got the Grimroot. Look, it's 8,800 gold, which is not too bad for a Tier 8 premium, to be fair, and it's a fairly decent price, and it's like I say, it's a meme vehicle. It's not a true, serious vehicle. It's a proper meme, as, yeah, the Derp gun is just hilarious. It really can be. So you've got a 63 km/h top speed, 20 km/h reverse speed, 530 horsepower engine with a 15.73 horsepower per ton ratio. So you're sitting there going, oh, that's really quick like the Mantis. Well, it's got a decent power to weight at 15.73. And you've got great ground resistances at 1.7, 1.1, and 1. They are fantastic, but this tank is very, very sluggish. It's pretty slow to get going. Once you get going, you will get up to that top speed, but generally you're pretty slow to get anywhere near 50, let alone 60. You have to go downhill to get to that top speed, so it might be something to run the powertrain just to get extra speed in that engine, or extra engine power. That's what might help this vehicle to be able to get up to that top speed, and it is more nippy with that turbocharger if you want, not the powertrain, the turbocharger. We're still getting used to the terminology at this point. But yeah, so if you run the turbocharger, you will end up getting that power to weight up a bit, which will then help the mobility feel of the vehicle, because it is a very sluggish vehicle. I want to get that across, because the 63 is fast, but it doesn't get there that often. 42 degrees a second on the hull rotation speed means this tank does turn pretty quickly on its tracks, and that is quite nice. 298 metres of still concealment with 332 metres of on the move concealment is not too bad. Actually, for a base coating, that is pretty good. And then you end up putting the improved concealment on, you'll get that down to about 268 odd metres of still concealment, and naturally your moving concealment will move down as well because it does help that, which makes you a very, very stealthy medium tank, which can be very, very helpful, especially even firing through bushes. You can keep this thing unlit while firing this big 15cm gun, and you can hit people hard with it, which is pretty dirty when it works like that. You've got 380 metres of view range, which is very average Tier 8 medium tank view range, means you get it up to a decent level, not incredible, but not bad. 32 degrees a second on the turret rotation speed is slower than the hull, so do bear that in mind that the turret traverse is pretty slow. But a lot of the situations you'll end up in, you're not feeling it too badly, because you're not really wanting to run and gun in this vehicle, because like I say, the mobility is slow and sluggish, so if you try and run and gun, you're just going to get done in. You've got 2.3 accuracy during rotation, with a 6.4 accuracy during movement. Awful! Absolutely atrocious, meaning as soon as you turn the turret, or as soon as you move the hull, your gun aim circle bloom is massive, because if you didn't know, accuracy during rotation and movement, it impacts your, not just obviously your accuracy when you're moving and during rotating the turret. What that is impacting is the aim circle and how big the aim circle will become while moving and while rotation, which is naturally where the accuracy becomes terrible if it's like that, because the aim circle is massive and it's like a pineapple on your screen. So Accuracy, dual rotation, and movement is terrible. You could help that with the snapshot and run and gun, and you probably absolutely definitely want to run those two skills. You could definitely run the gun stabilizer as well to get it better. I don't, because I'd rather make other things better, and I just accept that accuracy, dual rotation, and movement is terrible. Obviously, I'm going to help it as much as possible with snapshot and run and gun, but I'm accepting it in terms of the equipment so that I can have the flexibility of using other pieces of equipment to make the most out of this vehicle. You got 0.44 accuracy at 100 meters as well, which is incredibly derpy. Again, this gun is very derpy. It loves missing. 2.9 second aim time also takes a long time to get this gun aimed in, to impact the fact that you've also got a massive aim circle, so you will feel that horrifically. I'd say the gun handling on this vehicle is pretty atrocious. It's part of the balancing factor of the tank, right? 10 degrees of gun depression with 10 degrees of elevation. Now, 10 degrees of gun depression is fantastic. That will really help you to use ridge lines really effectively, poke over and dirt people, and use the pretty decent turret armor that this thing actually has as well. And 10 degrees of elevation is terrible, and that means that you really do struggle to get the gun aimed up on target, so do be careful of that in your Grimroot. 18.2 second reload is 1980 DPM with AP and HE, which for this kind of gun is pretty good DPM. So 220 pen on the standard AP, 95 on the HE. Now that HE pen at 95 is actually very good for this tier. It means you can pen so many vehicles, and you can hit them for 770 alpha, as the AP at standard has 600. Now 220 is enough to go through most of the tier 6s, most of the tier 7s, and even a lot of the tier 8s. You'll be able to go through quite a few tier 9s, but the more heavily armoured vehicles is where you're going to struggle. But that's where the ammo swapper comes into play, because you can just go, okay, I'm going to load HE for 95 pen. If you get the rear of a vehicle, you can pen them quite easily. Some of the weakly armoured tier 9s and 10s, you can also pen with 95 HE as well. And you can hit them for 770. Or you just splash them, because that's the flexibility you've got. You can pen them for 600, or you can splash them for 200 to 300. And you can just keep damage rolling like that, as well as doing module damage with the HE, tracking people, that sort of thing. It's got that kind of flexibility. The one thing you do have is 385 meters of second shell velocity on the standard AP, 350 meters of second shell velocity on the premium. Oh, sorry, it's not even got a premium round on the standard HE, which is slow. And that's another reason why this gun feels exceptionally derpy. You can't blind fire in this tank very easily at all, because it tends to shoot into the distance. That shell velocity is terrible. But you can have the meme RBRTs over ridgelines, where you can't actually see over the ridgeline, but you can still hit someone who's on top of the ridgeline at a distance because of the shell arc, because the shell velocity is that bad. So you can have that meme with this vehicle. And the Grimroot, seeing as it's a premium tank, has 150% silver bonus, which is pretty decent silver, and since you don't have a premium round, you make very good silver in the Grimroot, which is very nice for a tier 8 premium. And like I say, it's a proper meme tank, this vehicle. It's not one that's truly a serious vehicle that's going to be absolutely immense and mental like a Mantis or a Brask, thinking of the speed and the type of hull it's got, right? Where it's that light tank chassis with a medium tanky turret/gun, etc. It's not going to be like those two, which is mental. You've still got the fantastic camo that those two have, but you have an exceptionally derpy gun, and you are a lot more immobile in terms of the sluggishness that this vehicle has. So let's get into the modules. So you've got, that's the engine base. This thing does get set on fire, so do be careful of that. If you get shot through that lower plate on the left-hand side, you're getting set on fire, because it's no doubt going to do both sections of your modules there and light you up on fire. You get shot in the back end, you're going to end up damaging your engine and getting set on fire, so do be careful of that. It's just like the LTG in that way. That happens all the time, same as the Mantis. And that's where the ammo rack sits in this vehicle. So if they shoot you in the right-hand side of the lower, that's a pain point. Shoot you on the left-hand side, possibly get set on fire. Shoot you on the right-hand side, possibly get ammo racked. And that's where they're going to be shooting you as well, because the turret armor is actually pretty solid on this vehicle, and that's where the crew sits. But why is that modelled as crew? Okay, then. I'm not sure that's how that's supposed to be, but sure. Maybe it's just because it's a witch tank. Who knows? Anyway, so the armor on this vehicle, on the turret, is actually damn solid, because you've got that really nice K91 version 2 turret, which will bounce you a good amount of shots. As long as they're not hitting this cupola here, you will end up bouncing a lot of shots off of it, because it's very, very thick. You won't bounce tier 10 and tier 9 premium, naturally, especially if it's APCR. Heat and HE, however, probably won't pen this, Heat especially, because it's got space armor slapped all over it. So this turret has 50mm of spaced armor all over that turret front, and even on the rear, look. So heat and HE will have a really bad time with this turret. So if you fire heat at this thing and go, I'm not penning the turret, even though you've got 340 heat pen, it's likely just because the heat's getting absorbed by the 20mm of spaced armor. So this turret can bounce you a good amount of shots, which is very nice for using the 10 degrees of gun depression on a ridgeline. So it's not a pure paper vehicle that's sitting there going, I've got absolutely no armor, which is why the mobility is fairly sluggish. The fact is, you're trading that mobility that you sort of get on. I was going to say a Mantis, but the Mantis bounces a ridiculous amount off that turret anyway. But you trade that mobility that you get on potentially like a Barask to have the harder hitting gun and the turret armor, which, again, when you use the 10 degrees of gun depression, is very, very nice. And the way that this vehicle wants to be with the gun, because the gun is so derpy, those ridgeline engagements where you're right in someone's face can be very, very handy just for making sure you're going to guarantee the hit against someone. So what do I run in terms of a crew and equipment? Well, I've slapped Vasily Zaitsev in the Senjutsu. So what have we got, Vasily? So we've got Born, Leader, Situational Awareness, Run and Gun, Snapshot, Camouflage Expertise, Green Thumb, Radio Jamming, Comms Expert, and Expert Gunner. Expert Gunner for the 6% increase the chance of damaging enemy crew and modules with the non-HE shells. Also the decrease in the penetration over distance effect, which means with this vehicle, that's not the right vehicle, with this vehicle, we have 203mm of penetration at 500 meters, so that's what Expert Gunner will get us. You've got the Comms Expert and Radio Jamming because you can get into some very sneaky bushes quite easily because of how good the camo is on this vehicle, so you can actually play a bit of a passive spotting role. You don't want to do an active scouting role in this thing because, again, the mobility is a bit too sluggish for that. But you can get some aggressive bushes and just sit with your fantastic camo and spot people, and these two will help you in that role because you'll be able to keep people lit up for 3 seconds longer. And then if you get lit up yourself, you'll only be spotted for 7 seconds or 10 seconds if someone else is running Comms Expert. Camouflage Expertise and Green Thumb just to make your general camo better by 7.5%, and also the Green Thumb to make your camo in a bush better by 10%. Which, for the sneakiness this vehicle has, is very, very helpful. And again, if you decide to play that passive spotting role where you can pull into a bush, that'll be very, very helpful. Also, obviously, if you're using the bush to fire through, you're getting better camo because of Green Thumb too. Snapshot and Run and Gun, because we're not going to run the gun stabilizer, so we're trying to just help. Even though we're accepting the gun is bad, we're helping out as much as we can do with these two perks, just to get the oxygen rotation and movement down a little bit, so that we're not feeling it horrendously, even though we are, because it's still terrible. Situational Awareness to get that view range up, and Born Leader to make the best of everything on this tank. And then in terms of the equipment, food, like always, because it's very, very helpful. The Advanced Loader, the Optics, the Loaded Shell Exchanger. I just wish it was called Ammo Swapper. But anyway, the Ammo Swapper and the Improved Concealment. Now, Improved Concealment to get that fantastic camouflage this vehicle can get. The Loaded Shell Exchanger, I'm going to have to try and remember the name of that. The Loaded Shell Exchanger to be able to switch between AP and HE. It gives us that flexibility because you do have a long reload. So it's nice to not be stuck with one round if it's the wrong choice. You can switch between the two. Optics, because you want to spot for yourself. Naturally, having that 464 meters of view range is very handy because then you can spot targets at a bit further distances, especially with having the good camo, and then blap them. And the Advanced Loader to get the best out of the reload. Now, for me, you could probably swap out the Ammo Swapper if you feel like you're just going to load full HE, or if you're just going to load AP and HE, and just live with the choice that you make in terms of the shell that you load. And you'd be running the turbocharger. I think the turbocharger is a very valid option for this vehicle because at the minute your power to weight is 15.73. If I was to drop off the loaded shell exchanger, we're remembering, look, you get up to 66 kilometers an hour and your power to weight goes up to 16.5. So you've gained, 0.7, 0.8 on the horsepower per ton ratio, which will help you with that mobility feeling a little bit more in terms of getting there. Now, with this vehicle, again, if you wanted to, and you wanted to chance it, drop something like Radio Jamming or Comms Expert and run Pain Tolerance. And the reason I say run Pain Tolerance is to reduce the 20% chance of getting your crew injured, and then drop maybe something like Snapshot, because again, or even actually drop Snapshot and Run and Gun, because you're accepting the gun is terrible. Drop Snapshot and Run and Gun, run Pain Tolerance, and then run Jack of all trades. And the reason I say this, again, is to help the mobility, because then you could drop the med kit, because you're decreasing your chance of getting your crew killed, and then also if one of your crew that isn't the commander gets killed, you can then have Jack of all trades, which will decrease the effect of getting that crew member killed, or decrease the effect of the crew member that's been killed on your vehicle, and you can run fuel, which will give you that better horsepower, which is the exact reason we want it, and also the max speed. So if we were to put that on, Does it tell us because it's an active boost? Yeah, 18.17 horsepower per ton ratio. And that's why we'd do it, because that horsepower per ton goes through the roof at that point, and that could be pretty handy. So, yeah, there's always that option as well, okay? So there's plenty of options you could do for the vehicle. In realisticness, again, it's pretty flexible in terms of the setups. But yeah, that's what I'd run in terms of a crew and equipment. Like I said, I run that just for the ability to have the change which shell I'm using. So the statistics now, as you can see, we've not helped out the speed or the horsepower. Ground resistance is a little bit better. 268 metres of still concealment, with 304 metres of on-the-move concealment. 464 metres of view range, which is good enough to spot people with. 33.38 degrees a second on the turret rotation speed is a little bit better. 2.05 accuracy during rotation and 5.46 accuracy during movement is actually a wee bit better than it was when without the snapshot and run and gun and all the other bits and bobs. 2.78 second aim time as well is a little bit faster. It's not much faster, but it's a little bit faster, which every little helps. 0.42 accuracy at 100 metres, derpy, that's because it's what it is. 16.14 second reload is 2.2k DPM, which, yeah, is again, it's not too bad actually for this kind of alpha on this gun. With 220mm penetration and the 95 HE, you can pen things really easily with that, which is great to be able to use between the two different types of shells. Again, if you struggle to pen things with 220, you can just load the HE and splash them, or lightly armoured vehicles, load the HE and splash them. But again, if you're not using the ammo swapper, that's going to be a bit difficult. You're going to have to think about your shell choice ahead of time in that regard. But that's the Grimroot. It's, like I say, it's one of those tanks that can be really, really filthy, or really, really troll, because the gun handling is terrible, and if you get caught out because your mobility is sluggish and a bit slow, yeah, it can be a bit of a struggle at times, which is why I say this tank will definitely be Marmite. It'll be one of those where loads of people will love it, loads of people will hate it, just because they'll struggle with the speed and the derpy gun handling, but then there'll be people that can get used to the gun handling, make the most of that, or how derpy it is, make the most of the alpha, and then use the camo and the good turret armor to good effect, right? So what I'm going to do now is send you into the replays where you can watch this tank in action, see how it handles, and see if it's a bit of you or not. So as always, everybody, I'll see you in the replays. So here we are in the replays with the Grimroot. This first game's a tier 10 game on Heilbronn, and this is definitely the more averagey game for the kind of tank where, you know, the shells just don't quite go right, and you're against those tier 10 opponents. And yeah, this tank is one of those that you can tell the mobility is just that little bit sluggish. It doesn't feel like an extremely mobile medium tank. It feels like a more sluggish medium tank that's got a bit of armour on the turret. Yes, you can get to a good top speed, but you need a down slope to be able to actually do that. But when you poke over, you can just go, oh, hello, blap, you know, if the gun lets you. So I tried to look for a shot into the M4190 or the Hurlin, whichever one that was. Didn't get the chance to actually shoot the dude. We tried to take a snapshot at the Type 91, and yeah, we missed him by a country mile. And the Hurlin Hunt, I don't know why the Hurlin Hunt did that. It was never going to work. And the Hurlin Hunt got shut down by the Mill too. So I'm just going to pull into the bush, use the good camouflage that this vehicle has, because it does have good camo, to be able to sit in the bush, not get spotted until I fire. And the hope is that maybe the Type 61 will end up poking out again and giving me a nice shot, and I can pen a Type 61 in the side with HE. Should also possibly think about the AP round for it. So I was thinking about going into the next dip, actually, with the Type 61 not popping over. But there's a T249 and a medium tank. But in fact, the T249 comes over. So we load HE, because if I pen him with HE, it's going to kill him. And unfortunately, he just turns at that moment. So we miss the shot. Thankfully for me, most of his shots hit the turret, where he's not going to pen. And the T249's YOLO ends up... Well, does he end up getting shut down in the end? Well, yeah, Mr. Rheinmetall Panzerwagen says hi. So, yeah, the T249 dies for that YOLO, thankfully, and that means that we don't have to get YOLO'd and lose all of our hit points in the blink of an eye to that thing. Because what we did in that situation there with the T249 coming after us was get as close as possible, because, again, if he hits the hull armour, he's going to pen me. He just is. He's going to pen me, he's going to delete me, and I'm going to sit there going, all of my hit points! Because that's what T249s do, since, you know, their gun is pretty broken. But because we got up close and personal, that meant that he didn't actually get his gun down onto the hull. They hit the turret, which, with his penetration, he can't pen, and that meant that he only did a little bit of damage. We tried to ram him as well to kind of track him, so it'd make it easier for our team to kill him. But, yeah, well, it didn't work out in the end. So we're going to play around this corner and see if we can spot their campers that do like to sit on that hill. I switch to HE, and we hit that shot RBRT on the move. That's the kind of Derp memes we live for, where the gun just goes, yeah, alright, I'll just hit that. Shame that it didn't pen the Waffle Panzer IV, because it did hit the Waffle Panzer IV, a tank that we should have been able to pen with that, but yeah, probably hit a track or something, so we did get a bit unfortunate, but hey-ho. We load the HE, derp the HE towards the 50 TP, because I did switch to the 220 pen AP, and I'm not really going to pen a 50 TP with 220 pen. So I switched the HE to splash him, and the shot dropped low, which meant that we did absolutely no damage, because, yeah, we didn't even hit him. We switched to the HE because, again, I was thinking maybe a Night Stalker in the side, but no, I'm not going to chance it. We just launch a HE round into the side of the Night Stalker, which tracks him in place. Going to wait for the reload now to be able to get another shot downrange towards him, because every shot we can put into that Night Stalker is great. But in fact, the Type 61's coming, so I'm just trying to make sure of the shell, lead it up with the AP, and oh, it just flies over the top of the Type 61. Oh, the gun handling is derpy. It really is. And that's what I mean. This gun handling is derpy. It does love a good miss. So you've got to be really careful with how you're taking your shot. And because that Type 61 was moving quite quick, we didn't quite give it enough lead, and that meant that it just flew over his engine deck rather than hitting the tank and penning it for 600 odd. Because this gun is so satisfying when it works. When you start chonking people for 600, it's just, oh, yeah. But you can do that. But you can do that, 50 TP, we can't pen that with the AP, so we load the HE, splash him for 300 odd, and then he thinks twice about that and pulls back. In another tank with the lower penetration, I might look at that guy and go, I can't do anything to that dude. And then just bounce repeatedly. Whereas, again, the AP is not really going to go through that guy's front, so we load the HE and we're still splashing for 300. So I'm just looking for the HE shot here. With the track which poking around the corner, I could just splash his tracks off and actually do damage. I'm trying to be careful here because I don't want to take a big hit from this 50 TP, as they still do have quite a few tanks left alive, and they've got some pretty nasty ones left as well. So we're just waiting for the aim time, aim up towards his lower side. Oh, gone! We end up derping low, hitting the ridgeline below the 50 TP, and do 0 damage, which again is the gun in action. I didn't really want to go where the G-Saw had gone to make it an easier shot, because like that's what just happened to him. The T-57 Heavy pulled back and clipped him out. And we don't really want that at this point in time. So we're just trying to back up so that we're in the perfect situation to run away. And this is where the elevation is really doing us in as well, which is another reason I like this replay, because you've seen some of the good points, but also a lot of the bad points of this vehicle, which can be a royal pain. Like the derpiness of the gun handling, the fact that this mobility is just that little bit sluggish, which we're going to try and use now to get towards the enemy team. But we're not even on that big of a hill, and we're still doing 30 to 40 kilometers an hour. You know, this tank is pretty slow. The elevation, the gun depression is fantastic, like we saw at the start. You can really get the gun down easily, but the elevation is just poor, and when you're in that sort of situation where you're trying to look up at a tank like the 50 TP, yeah, we really struggle to even get the gun anywhere near the target. So there's two tanks left on my team, the TD and the T-57 Heavy, but the T-57 Heavy is getting absolutely Night Stalkered, and he gets finished off by the Conqueror. The Baltic's about to get yellowed by the two light tanks, which means, yeah, sad times for us, we don't get any more damage, but we finish the game with a very, very average total there for a tier 8 medium tank like this tank, with the 1200 assistance, the 2k damage, with that epic victory. Night Stalker on top as usual, with the little bit of blocked, because we blocked a couple of shots there from the T249, but 1292 base XP. Again, fairly average game there for the Grimroot, and especially decent in a tier 10 lobby. So we're into the second replay, and this second replay is the type of replay where the game's just not going well. It's just not going well for us. We're not managing to get anything right going for us. We're not managing to get any damage where we need to. We're getting a bit unlucky with RNG in different ways. And I think it's the way that this tank is, that sometimes it can be like that in your games. But then when you get given the opportunity to get a couple of shots strung in a row, all of a sudden the game goes from being absolute rubbish to, oh, that was a really good game. And that's what happens with the Grimroot, because it's got that kind of gun. When you do manage to make sure that you're hitting your shots, because the other thing that this tank is good at is peekaboom. This tank is very good at peekaboom gameplay, where you just poke around a corner and go bam, hit someone for 600, pull back around a corner and get yourself safe. This tank can do that, and it likes doing that. So when you're in a situation where, and you're going to see it in this game, where you've just not managed to hit any shells, the gameplay's been a bit long range, but then you manage to come in and catch people off guard and start putting the damage in, consistently stringing shots together, your game goes from, like I say, you sit there going, oh, that was terrible, to, oh, that wasn't too bad, you know? So, this game here, on this map, which is Duckler Pass. On Duckler Pass, it's the team destruction spawns, so we're on the weird axis of where we're going. So we're going to this corner here. Why? Because we can try and shoot people as they come around the corner on our left, but also if people come a bit aggressive to the rock face that they are right, like the SVAC in front of us, we can poke around and shoot them. So we get a shot towards the CS-53 there, but sadly the RBRT RNG was against us. 220 pen should go through a CS-53 quite easily, especially on his upper or lower plate. But RNG went, absolutely not. You're just going to ricochet. So we didn't get to pen the CS-53. Now we're waiting for the SVAT 105 because we've got the HE loaded. The 95 pen will go through. The SVAT 105, we can hit him for 770. That's what we want to do. So it's all about patience. So I was looking at the Jagdpanther and I was thinking, can I get a shot at the dude? Yeah, I can. So we load AP. We bounce because the shell arc makes it so it actually hits his upper plate as opposed to his lower plate. Realistically, I should just fire HE here. I shouldn't fire AP. I'm trying to go for the penetration to the lower plate of this Jagdpanther. I should fire HE. This is a bad moment, really, where bad choice of shell type, right? But we have loaded HE, and that's what I'm talking about with this tank in terms of blind firing. It can't do it. Because the way that the shell arcs work in this game, that if you're aiming into the distance, the shell will try and accommodate for that. And especially when you've got terrible shell velocity, that's where you'll feel it, and the shell will just fly off into the distance and loop up and over, as opposed to just flying in a straight line. So we do find the French Tier 8 tank destroyer, Mr. SVAT 105. The HE shell goes through for 425, and we get our first shot of the damage of the game, and our first kill, which we'll take. And we're nearly 3 minutes in. Because we've either had some bad RNG, where we probably should have done more than we did, we've had some terrible choice of shot, terrible choice of ammunition, and some very derpy gun handling, which is the Grimroot. It's the Grimroot all over. I say this gun is not for the faint-hearted. When it works, oh boy, it works. It's great. When it doesn't work, yeah. No, it's not a good time. And I'm a sad fool as well, because I've had 2 aces in this vehicle and I've not recorded either, which was such a stupid move because I ended up taking my hard drive out to put some of these replays onto my PC and then forgot to put it back in, like a moron. Because then I ended up playing the game going, oh, that was a really good game, that will be good to watch. And then going, oh. Oh, you absolute moron. As we get a bit of bad RNG there, as the shell that we took on the Jagdpanther 2 missed by a country mile, and he sets us on fire. Pain. But yeah, so I've had some really nice games in this tank where I did to, what, 5.5, 6k damage in it, and was like, oh my goodness me, that was great. And then, yeah. And also a 3k game in a tier 10 game, which was going to be my ideal, like, hey, this is what it's like in a tier 10 game where you get properly stuck in. And yeah, no, again, I'm a moron. It is what it is. But I digress. We're still in this game here. We're up to 425 damage with 350 assistance. And this is what I'm talking about with this tank. We've had a terrible time of it. And that's why I like this replay. We've had a terrible time of it. RNG, bad choices, all that good stuff. So we're finally going to get in to try and help this guy out against the Jagdpanther. And we don't get we just don't get the shot in, sadly, for us. So we're still on the 425 damage with 350 assistance. It's 9-7, so we are winning. But the HP is 45%, 45%, or maybe that 44%, 42%. So it's still very, very close. So we're just in that problem where we've done nothing. We're 5 minutes into the game nearly. This has just been awful for us. But again, it's where the game is going to sort of snowball for us into a pretty decent game. So we know there's a Valerathon up here. I want to go catch this Valerathon out if I can. You're seeing the poor horsepower per ton ratio in the Grimroot right now, where we're just very slow climbing the hill. Hoping to get there, though, in time to be able to get this shot in. So we see the side of the Valerathon, and we get the AP shell through the side of the Valerathon, picking up our second kill of the game for our second shot of damage. 5 minutes in. Good times. So we've seen the KV3. We know there's a TD at H1, but we've seen the KV3, and the KV3 is the one that I truly want, because I can put 2 or 3 shots into him. That'll be 1400 HP. That would turn us into a fairly decent game. 220 pen, we can go through that. So we see the KV3. We'll slow it down so that we're making sure that the aim circle isn't huge. Get it mostly aimed in there on his tank and slap him in the side of the turret for 575, putting us up to nearly 1400 damage. And then I realise, oh boy, that's an Iron Rain. He could actually shoot me from here. That's quite awkward. So we're just aiming the shot up towards the Iron Rain, who's been spotted by the heavy tank and the medium tank. Put the HE round, down range, straight in for 597, securing our third kill of the game with our 4th shot. Say, it's the way it goes. We're up to 1991 damage, and that's the thing, when you've got these big alpha guns, generally it doesn't take many shots to turn a game that's fairly average into a pretty decent game, right? Because that's just the way the cookie crumbles when you're hitting people so hard. So again, the KV3 is kind of disappointed. No, he's disappeared. He's disappointed, so he's disappeared, right? He's disappeared, so the KV-3 is slow. I know he's probably going to be around this corner. But with the Lycan getting spotted where he is, and not really knowing where the other medium tank is, I thought, okay, I'll take the chance to take a shot at this Lycan. I felt like he was going to move quicker, so I thought I'll just take the snapshot. It ended up missing by a mile because, yeah, again, this gun is terrible like that. We put the shot through the side of the KV-3. We now know we're safe because we know the Bog Horror is down in that dip. We know where the medium tank is, and we know where the light tank is. We know where they all are now. So we know we're pretty much safe from the left-hand side. My fear was there was something at A1, A2, but thankfully that is not the case. So we're going to go try and get as close as possible to get down and get some shots into the side of the Bog Horror or into this Lycan or the Draugen. But the Bog Horror ends up driving around the corner. I wasn't expecting the Bog Horror to be there. The Asterion goes in. We're waiting on our reload. Hopefully we'll be able to shut down this Lycan as he comes in. He's now a one-shot for our AP round, so I'm not going to chance the HE. And we slap the AP round, into the Lycan there for 560 damage to kill him. I wasn't chancing the HE. The HE would guarantee the kill, but there's more also the chance that the HE could just splash him, so I didn't really want to risk that. We wanted to guarantee that kill. We're up to 3.1k damage with the 4 kills now. And from this rock here, I should be able to get some shots to the side of the Bog Horror, especially with 10 degrees of gun oppression. I switched to HE because I know I can pen the side of the Bog Horror with HE. And that's what we did. 720 damage straight through the side of the Bog Horror because the 95 pen will go through his side like that. And we've put ourselves up to nearly 4k damage. And this is what I'm talking about. We went from basically doing nothing to... oh! We're at 4k damage. Yeah, 4.2k damage. I could have fired AP there, but I wanted the HE pen through the lower plate. But yeah, it didn't quite work out. But we'll take the HE damage anyway. But yeah, in the 2 minutes, since we hit that 5-minute mark, we're now down an extra 3 minutes. And we've managed to go from, what, 600, 700 damage to 4.2k. And that's what I'm talking about. When you can actually start to string shots together in this tank and the shells start to hit, the gun is so impactful because you're just chunking damage out every single time. You're doing some big numbers in terms of that damage, which can be very, very nice for the Grimroot. And as you saw there, it can be just so impactful because when you do make those shells hit, like that Bog Horror, he was pretty healthy. And then we hit him with a HE round in the side, did 720 damage. That was most of his hit points gone. And that meant that he couldn't take another hit and he got shut down in the end, right? So it's very, very useful for that, and that's the problem is naturally that you've got to get the gun to do it because the gun is just, yeah, it's pretty damn derpy, right? So we're on to this third replay, and this time we are now on this map, which is Hell's Highway. That's what it was. I was trying to think of what Highway's Halloween mode is called. Hell's Highway. So on Hell's Highway, same as Highway, what we're going to do from this spawn is go patrol this little bit of ridge line here. Because hopefully we can try and spot people as they cross the JK line, get into the town, and we can maybe get some extra shots into them. It's going to be a bit of a struggle, though, because naturally this gun is derpy, but maybe we're spotting them up for other people. And if the town starts to look a bit like a struggle, we can go in, and it's the perfect place for us to play peekaboo. Because, again, we can poke around a corner, go, "Hi, friend!" smash them for 600 damage, sorry. Or, if we get the rear, load a HE and pen them for 770, and then get ourselves back safe around the corner. We're just missing this. We really need the shots to fly into this M41 90mm. Currently, he's trying to light up all our dudes. If the rounds would connect, we could try and delete him. But again, this is the struggle with this tank, to be fair, is the fact that the shell velocity is just a bit poor. Well, actually, it's a little bit of an understatement. It's a little bit more than a bit poor. It's terrible. But there we go. So, unfortunately, we tried to take another shot at the M41 90mm, and it just didn't go well, did it? We just didn't get the chance to get the damage in. So, there's 2 light tanks where they are, at G7. Our heavy tanks are just about starting to get into the town area, and they're not really seeing anything, and that's making me go, have they sent anything to the town? I'm surprised that nothing has been spotted yet. Okay, let's go into the town area, see if we can find anyone lurking, and again, just try and get the gun going. And in fact, there was 3 guys that have got into the town. There's an IS-3, a Bog Horror, and a TD that we don't know what it is. So we're going to go try and get a HE shell into the side of the Bog Horror, because again, you've just seen what the HE can do against a Boggy Bogger. If we can get the shot into the Boggy Bogger, that's what we're going to do. So we load the HE, catch him out, fire it into the side. Because of the way it was angled, it was just angled enough there that the 95 pen HE could not go through the Bog Horror. But we did set him on fire. So we get 762 damage there. I load the AP round to go try and get another shot into the Bog Horror, but the IS-3 is looking this way. Thankfully, the shot through the pike nose there of the IS-3, because it was perfectly angled for us to get the shot in. And we're up to 1443 damage. We did take the hit there from the IS-3, which is not ideal, but still, you know, trades. He hit us for 400 odd, we hit him for the 600 odd, so we'll take it. We'll take it. So we're at 1443 damage. The medium tank is currently trying to pressure the 3 tanks in there. There's also a convoy. I'm not quite sure what the medium tank's doing because he's just basically driven in front of the entire enemy team that's around that corner. And I couldn't see that going very, very well. And I didn't really want to go around that corner myself because I felt like it's just going to end badly. So we're just waiting for the convoy now to drive backwards, sideways on, or in front of us, sideways on, so that we can also get a shot into his side. But he's currently just staying hidden behind that building. I'm like, Mr. Conway, do you know I'm here? Do you know that you are safe from me? So we fire the HE round. That was a mistake. That would, I mean, I should have probably fired that at the side of his turret. But that was actually a genuine mistake. I thought I had AP loaded, and I goofed. So we hit him with HE for 224, when we should have fired AP. And if we'd fired AP, we could have hit him for, are you going to give me the shot, Conway? No? Yes? No? Apparently not. But yeah, if we fired the AP round there, we'd have got 600 odd damage. He'd have been one shot right now. But because we goofed, that meant we didn't have the AP in. We do get the shot into his track there for 641, keeping him pinned in place. And I'm now hoping that the T-30 will be able to shut down Mr. Conway as he drives round this corner, which he does. And we're up to 2.3k damage with the TD and the heavy tank, left in the little middle area. So we're going to go after Mr. Bog Horror to get the heavy tank out of the game. Put the AP round through the side of the Bog Horror, securing our first kill of this game for 2.8k damage, and the Sturm Tiger P gets himself shut down by the T-30, meaning there's just 6 tanks left alive on the enemy team. We don't really know where they are, because again, look where my team is. There's a TD at A6, there's a TD at D7, and they're not seeing anyone crossing the open. Which makes me think, well, where are they? They're not coming across towards our base. They're not in the town. Are they just camping on the other side, maybe? I mean, naturally, that's where you'd expect. Maybe someone down in the riverbed, because it's what you'd expect from this map. Because usually there's people going spotting, and then the people shooting across the A, B, C, D, E, F, G line, right, as the enemy team gets spotted. But these Object 777 version 2 gets himself spotted by my team as they're progressing out of the town, which is always an awkward push, always a very awkward push, but they're lighting them up for us to be able to get shots into. So we put a HE round into the 777 version 2, which tracked, well, I don't think it tracked him, but it did end up splashing him for a bit, which is good because, again, we would have never penned him with the AP round. That's why I like having the ammo swapper, because I could have fired an AP round there, would have never done any damage to the 777 version 2, but with the HE, we managed to splash him for 200 odd. There's the Earthshaker up there as well, so we're just going to go close down this Earthshaker, try and get on this ridgeline below him, use the 10 degrees gun depression, get a shot down, or try and spot where the rest of the other 3 vehicles are on the enemy team, because they're going to be somewhere along the 1-2 line. And in fact, the Dragon gets spotted, so we've loaded HE, and unfortunately the HE round goes, you know what, I could hit this Dragon, or I could fly over. Thanks, gun handling. Thank you very much for that indeed. So that Dragon ends up taking a few hits from the heavy tank and the medium tank. We've got the 3 tanks that are now spotted directly in front of us, and again, I know I can use my 10 degrees of gun depression and my turret armor on this little ledge here to be able to go hull down and try and get some shots into them. So this Asterion looks to be looking into the distance, so I'm just going to poke over and shoot him in the back end, hopefully set him on fire by doing that as well, because you never know. And in fact, he's AFK, and we did set him on fire because, you know, we've got the expert gunner, which is increasing the chance of doing module damage. We've got high module damage since we're a 15cm gun firing AP. And if you shoot towards the engine deck, there's a likelihood you're going to set an Asterion or an M48 round Panzer on fire. And that's exactly what happened. But that Asterion was AFK, so it was just a bit of free damage, realistically, in the end there. They've got 2 tanks left, which is the heavy tank and the medium tank. Just aiming the shot up on this Dragon. Now, with the HE, it drops really low. Drops really low and doesn't give us the kill on Mr. Dragon, which is just highly unfortunate, but it's the way this gun goes. Because like I say, I'm not sugarcoating this gun whatsoever. If I was, it'd be a very sweet gun. But it's not. It's very derpy, and it loves missing. Again, you've got to force it to work for you. You really have to force it to work for you. Once you've done that, you're going to have some great times with it, and you're going to get some great results, as you've probably seen so far, and as you'll probably experience yourself if you do pick up this vehicle, either buying it this year or picking up for free next year if the trend follows, right? Because the Night Stalker and the Monster Jaeger were bought, or you had to pay for the Monster Jaeger and the Night Stalker last year, and then you can get them for free this year. So the likelihood is, following the trend, you'll be able to earn the Grimroot for free next year. So you can just end up buying it now, or just wait for a year and go pick it up then, right? But yeah, the Grimroot is one of those that, if you can master and get used to how all of the defects on the tank work, you can really use the good parts of the vehicle to just have some superb games and just have some superb fun, because that's what this vehicle is. It is a lot of fun to play, for me personally. But then that's me who loves derp tanks, you know, because derp is love, derp is life. And that's the way the cookie crumbles for something like the Grimroot. It's always going to naturally be a tank that I do thoroughly enjoy. But again, just because I enjoy it doesn't mean I can't see past the fact that there are a lot of bad points about this vehicle, which could make it very awkward for a lot of people to be able to actually get the most out of it. So we're on the fourth and final map of this video, and the fourth and final game of this video, and we're on Death Valley, which what we want to do on Death Valley is come to the top of this hill area, because once we get to the top of this hill area, we can shoot people as they crest the hill, like Mr. Light Tank over here, which is the T92. We can put HE into them, or AP, or we can try and go up on our left-hand side and cut them off as they climb up as well. But it's a bit awkward when you've not got speed, getting up that little ledge there from this side. It's easier to get up on the left from their side, and that right-hand side of rock is easier for us to get up to. But then it's still actually pretty easy for them anyway, because the ledge is a bit flatter for them. So realistically, that left-hand side is far easier for them to even use, but there we go. So I'm going around on this right-hand side, just to give myself a bit better chance of getting shots into these guys. But I realise, oh, yeah, this could be a bit awkward, actually, because I could get shot from their campers. And in fact, there's an Emil 1 here who is clearly loaded, and I sit here going, oh boy, this is not going to be good. He bounces off our turret front, which is great. Pens is in the rear, which is highly likely to set us on fire if we're not careful. So we've got to be extremely, extremely careful here. The Emil 1 gets shot again by Artie. We repair our engine there as it gets hit by that Emil. We pen the HE round into the LTTB, and we're going to push away aggressively because we realise, oh boy, we've been far too aggressive. We've been stupidly aggressive. Thankfully, the Death Chariot misses his shot there into us. We're going to load the HE round, and derpy gun handling. Derpy gun handling, because again, the Death Chariot is going to be a royal pain to pen with the 220 pen AP, unless his lower plate is quite flat for us, so we wanted to splash him with the HE and track him in place. But again, sadly, the gun is derpy. The gun likes missing. So, in fact, with the lower plate being angled like that, again, this is why I love the ammo swapper. It's why I love the ammo swapper, and it's why I would run that loaded shell exchanger every time on this tank. Because right there, I had HE loaded, because I thought, I can only really splash him. But the way he came around that corner lifted his lower plate into the air, which meant I could pen it with 220 pen. And so I put the shell in for 600 odd, and then we finish him off with the HE, because we knew we could splash him to death with that HE. Just like that. That's why that ammo swapper is quite vital for this vehicle in making the most of it, because one of the good assets of this vehicle is the flexibility of the AP and the HE round. So if you can make the most of it, you're going to have a lovely time with it. So we know there's a heavy tank down below, so we're just going to try and get over to get a shot into his side if we can. We get the gun depression, fire the shell in, and for some of that derpy gun handling, RNG just went, yeah, okay, I'll shoot it. And the shot went straight through the side of the MX-65T. Didn't quite finish him off, but it put us up to nearly 2.7k damage. The two tanks down there are probably going to end up dying now, but in fact, I'm just going to go YOLO down this ledge now to go after Mr. T92, and then progress towards where their artillery might be. So the Dragon shuts down the AMX-65T, we come over, put the HE shell through the upper plate of the T92LT, finish him off for our second kill of this game, thankfully dodge artillery, and we're up to that 3,000 damage mark. We get spotted, and we spot the Fortress Ferdinand there, because we're not too far away from each other, and I was on the move, so naturally my movement camo is worse than my standard camo. But we managed to get ourselves unspotted, and we were unspotted pretty quickly there, which means that he's probably not got comms expert, meaning, yeah, we were unspotted for 7 seconds, which is pretty handy. It meant that we could poke over without actually being seen by him. We're loading HE to try and loop the HE shell into his superstructure and do some splash damage. I decided to go for the AP round because it gives us his side, but the shell ends up going wide right, not getting the damage there on that Fortress Ferdinand. which is quite unfortunate. I shouldn't have dilly-dallied on that, realistically. I should have loaded HE and then just splashed him with the HE round, guaranteed a shot of damage in for 200-300 damage, meaning it might have been easier to kill for someone else, or it might have taken less shots in the future to be able to shut him down. So with the Fortress Ferdinand looking like he's running away, I'm deciding to go after the artillery, but we end up finding an M46 pattern career, load the AP round, and the shell goes perfectly into his upper plate, putting us onto 3.5k damage with that 1175 assistance. So that shot into the M46 pattern career has made him pull back, so we're just going to use the mobility to try and get around the safer way and actually go down this ledge, because the way I wanted to go down this ledge in the first place, but it's still a fairly new map, Death Valley, and I got a little bit lost and went, oh no, that's all cliff. That's all sheer cliff face. I will drop off that and die. We don't want to do that. No, 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 no. So we're going to go chase around this corner. I hope we find artillery, because again, I'm assuming artillery is somewhere around this area, being as we're in towards the area where the cap is. Just got to be careful that the M46 pattern career or the Fortress Ferdinand doesn't appear on my left and start deciding to try and put some shots in. We find a medium tank, but we find the piggy. Hello, piggy! Put the HE shell into the piggy there for 738, putting him down to a one-shot. The M46 pattern career is actually all the way over there now. Puts a shot into our side that damaged the engine as well straight away. Again, if you take a shot in that back end, the engine always gets damaged. The Batchat 15555 got tracked. We aim up the shot with the HE and finish off the Bat 15555 there with the HE shell to his rear. Up to 4.6k damage with 3 kills. Got a bit of assistance damage now at 1749 as well, as we were lighting up that M46 pattern career, and he gets shut down by our artillery, meaning there's just 3 tanks left. The 2 TDs, the ISM, and another heavy tank that we're backing up to try and get into our render range, which is the Chrysler K, aiming the shot up with HE to splash him to death, but artillery has words to say about that, so we're just going to aim the shot up now with the HE round to get a shot into the ISM. But the shot went places. The shot went places. But again, we're trying to blind fire with HE. It just doesn't work with this gun. It really, you can't blind fire with it. Which makes a map like Province, for example, a royal pain, especially when you're shooting across each side. Because, yeah, if you're shooting at distance, the gun will decide to where it's going to miss shots everywhere. Because that's the gun. It's really not great for anything like that. So we load HE because 220 pen is still going to struggle with an ISM. Now, that ISM can actually kill us, so we're in an awkward spot here if we get quite out in the open. We put the HE shell in for 224, and we're going to use the mobility to get up close and personal to this rock to stay safe from the ISM, but he takes a big hit from the TD. The 2 heavy tanks are going in, so I'm like, okay, he's going to die, right? He started to look at us there, and I was like, oh no, I'm going to die! Oh, thank the Lord, the bog horror killed him. Oh, we'll take that. We're up to 4.8k damage with that 1954 assistance, 3 kills, and there is just the 1 tank left, which is Mr. Fortress Ferdinand, who we don't really know where he is at this point. We know where he was spotted earlier on when we were shooting at him. So we're just going to go in that general direction and hope that we find the Fortress Ferdinand. Now, the nice thing is for us is we got 387 HP. Now, that Fortress Ferdinand is not going to kill us with the alpha he's got, because naturally the Fortress Ferdinand has 360 alpha. So he has to high roll to kill us, and we can kill him in one shot if our AP manages to pen him. So we get up alongside him, he's fired at the Gorinich, I'm making sure I'm aiming the shot, we fire, it goes wide and low, does track damage only to the Fortress Ferdinand, and of course he high rolls! He high rolls and kills us. But thankfully, we still finished with the victory. The 3 kills, 4.8k damage, 2k assistance. The first class, the high caliber, the Confederate with the Pascucci's for 1962 base XP. Really nice game there for the Grimroot to end the video. Like I say, it's one of those tanks that's very, very hit and miss, and we had a great game there. Even if RNG decided to go, yeah, I'm just going to end your day now. Thank you for that. But yeah, that's the Grimroot. That's the new Halloween tank for 2025. Like I say, it's a very Marmite tank. I think a lot of people would not like it because of the bad gun handling and stuff like that, but a lot of people will. So as always, everybody, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.
A great success!